Okay, here we are again with WorldView and ActionSA, this time represented by Athol Trollip. He is a very well-known figure in South African politics. Ladies and gentlemen, hello. I'm going to go straight into it. Athol, thank you so very much for making the time to speak to me this morning.
Thank you, Solly. Thanks for the opportunity to talk to WorldView, their viewers, and with yourself. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, it is always a pleasure, indeed. My home is in the Western Cape. In the Western Cape, in Cape Town, and we've seen over the years many people from the Eastern Cape, where you are the head of ActionSA, people coming into the Western Cape. And then they get to the Western Cape, you see people still promoting the ANC or against the TA. So what is going on? Do you see those movements? Why would people run away from the Eastern Cape? I know it's not from running away from ActionSA, but from the DA. How are you from the ANC? How do you guys say to South Africans, stay here? We're going to make this place work for all of us. I mean, South Africans can go anywhere they want. Nobody says they mustn't. But the movement has been almost the flight out of the Eastern Cape, and yet the ANC continues to run the show. What is going on there?
Yeah, sorry. I mean, there are a lot of issues that you've raised there. So if I can just try and unpack them as quickly as possible. First of all, there is no doubt that there's a massive outflow or an unprecedented urbanization of people from the central and northeastern part of the Eastern Cape to the cities. Okay, I don't think it's any more prevalent anywhere else in South Africa, certainly not in South Africa, possibly even the world, that we have such an accelerated urbanization of people fleeing the poverty of the rural hinterland. And recently, Oscar Mabuyane, the Premier of the Eastern Cape, made a public admission and said that the ANC had failed the rural people of the Eastern Cape. Now, I think that's a massive admission. And also, we're a rural province. We're an agricultural province. We have got some motor industries in the two big metros, but other than that, we have no mining. So our real assets, provincial assets, are the fact that we have extraordinary agricultural potential. We also have great tourism potential, and we have a very extensive coastline. Now, those are three things that should stand in very good stead for us, but they're not being properly exploited or properly utilized. So we have massive unemployment in the rural hinterland, and this Eastern Cape has got the highest unemployment in the whole country, close to 50%. So every second adult in this province doesn't work in the formal sector, and nearly 70% youth unemployment. So what we've seen is people move out of the rural hinterland, leave their families, dislocate the social fabric, end up living in twilight zones on the periphery of cities in the Eastern Cape, namely Buffalo City and Nelson Mandela Metro, and they live in terrible circumstances, terrible socio-economic circumstances, and can't get access to jobs. So the next step in that search for greener pastures or employment is to move down the west coast or the east coast down to the Western Cape. And you see the first stop is Humansdorp, Jeffreys Bay, St. Francis Bay, then on to Plet, then Knysna, then Mossel Bay, and then finally places like Swellendam, Hermanus, and then Cape Town. So that is a phenomenon, and it has a couple of consequences. First of all, we only have population surveys every 4 or 5 years.
Right.
And even those are not very effectively done. I myself was not counted in this survey in this year. So what happens is that the Eastern Cape gets less and less money, and the Western Cape should get more and more money. But because those surveys or censuses don't always coincide with population movements, there's always a bit of a drag.
Right.
So you end up people living in squalor also in the Western Cape, and that's a big issue. And it's as if the ANC government just can't see it. They just close a blind eye and carry on doing the same things. I listened to Oscar Mabuyane's State of the Province address this last week, and he touched on all the issues. So it means he has an understanding of what's going on, but what he's doing about it is completely. There's no evidence that they're doing anything. For example, he said they were revitalizing the industrial parks of the former homelands. Well, I went there last week, Solly. I went there on Thursday, and I went to Fort Jackson, I went to Dimbaza, I went to Butterworth. I wanted to go and see for myself. And all I saw were the skeletal remains of factories from a bygone era and no other economic investment other than clear view fencing being put up around these industrial parks. And those kind of contracts always go to good comrades, but it's not real economic investment. It's just smoke and mirrors stuff.
Right. Is it, I mean, but do people make a connection between the plight or the state of the Eastern Cape and the fact that the ANC has failed, or do they separate the two? Because the ANC seems to be doing fairly well in elections over there over time.
Look, the ANC definitely get the highest support in this province of all the other provinces. So there is a sort of a disjuncture between the kind of service delivery that we get in this province and the kind of support that the ANC gets.
Right.
But, you know, a whole lot of things are now culminating at once for the ANC that are making the looming 2024 election something for them to be very nervous about. Load shedding, job shedding, poor economic growth, poor education, poor safety and security. The Eastern Cape's becoming something of a killing field. We saw that KwaZulu-Natal for many decades has been the killing field or political killing field, but the Eastern Cape has succumbed to that as well. So I think there's going to be a convergence of all of these things, that there's going to be a turnaround. And like anything in life, you know, a tipping point, when it comes very quickly. It appears to take a long time, but then when it does come, it tips very quickly. And I think the biggest challenge for the ANC, Solly, is the fact that 53% of the electorate that are registered to vote and have voted before did not vote in the last election. So there's a massive body of South Africans out there who are disillusioned, disappointed with their previous political affiliation, and that's primarily the ANC of that 53%, but also of many other parties. Those people are disillusioned, so they're waiting in the wings for something new, something fresh that they can hold on to that makes them believe that we can turn this around. Now, I'm the eternal optimist. So I believe that the Eastern Cape has got incredible potential. And if I can use one example, the city of Makhanda, it used to be called Grahamstown, named after a famous Xhosa general and a warrior during the frontier wars. Now, Makhanda should be akin to the Stellenbosch of the Eastern Cape, but it's not. It's actually the armpit of the Eastern Cape. It's got magnificent educational institutions, has a wonderful university, has the High Court of the Eastern Cape based there. It's got some incredible religious cathedrals, and it is steeped in the history of the frontier wars. Yet we have no historical tourism there. We have no cultural tourism other than once a year we have the Grahamstown Festival. Now, if you compare that with the Colenso and the battlefields of KZN, where tourists are always coming to have a look at the historical battlefields of KwaZulu-Natal, they don't compare to what happened in the Eastern Cape. So the Eastern Cape calls themselves the province of legends. And all I can say is that the ANC has disrespected those legends dramatically. And
that's true. But do you think these more? I mean, Grahamstown is a lovely place. I've been over. It used to be a lovely place, and there are little towns like this throughout South Africa that have amazing wealth in history and tourist attractions as well. That could maybe they should be run by CEOs and executive managers, but qualified people who know what they do, who run them like business, attract business, tourism and other investments, than mayors who are politically appointed and who don't understand the thing. What are your views?
I couldn't agree with you more. And I said recently that there's a distinct lack of coordinated approach to tourism in this province. I think tourism is best driven by the private sector because they have a vested interest in it and they can elect representative bodies that can do that best. But I think the government has got a very big role to play, and certainly regional and provincial governments got a big role to play for facilitating arrival of tourists into the Eastern Cape. Now, you know, Solly, I'm the descendant of an 1820 settler, and 2020 came and went. There was no celebration, recognition, or anything of that seminal, happening. It's history. Yes, it has some painful connotations.
Were there calls for a celebration and were they ignored?
Absolutely. And I mean, it was an opportunity to remind people what the real history was. And of course, there was pain, but also it has bequeathed something incredible to this province. People from this province have established themselves all over the world.
Right.
Anyway, that came and went. But the big problem with tourism in this province is that we don't have air access, very good air access. I mean, I'm flying to Joburg today. I wanted to fly middle of the day. I can only fly this evening. There are limited flights. The connectivity between ORT and Cape Town and the Eastern Cape is really, really bad.
It's been like that for quite a while. I mean, they've been, why is it? Why can't the provincial government, just like they did in Cape Town, they have fought for more airlift in and out of the city, and it's happening. But maybe they don't say that, or maybe there's no reason for people to come there. I mean, what drives? Is it demand or supply?
I think clearly they don't think that way. You said it yourself. Western Cape has identified tourism as the economic driver of that province, and they have gone out of their way to make it a tourist destination. And tourists want seamless transfer from their home country to where they arrive to their final destination. And Solly, we've got some incredible destinations in this province. We've got malaria-free Big Five areas. We're the only place in the world that has got a Big Six, including a Big Seven, actually, the Big Five, the nationally and internationally renowned Big Five of land mammals. Then you've got the great white shark and the southern right whales connecting the Addo Park to the coast. So there's extraordinary opportunity, but we're just limping along and we don't attract the tourists. Got incredible climate, incredible seaside resorts, but we're just not doing it. So I think the ANC is in control and they administer and govern this province. They don't do it very well. And I think they're going to have a big surprise coming in 2024, because I think there is a tipping point coming. I've lived through that, Solly. I remember when I was the mayoral candidate in Nelson Mandela Bay, the ANC's arrogance said, Jesus Christ will return before there's a DA mayor in the city. Well, there was a DA mayor in the city, and there've subsequently been 2 more DA mayors. And they say pride always comes before a fall. And I just think that South Africa needs something better than the current government. And I mean, obviously, I'm parochial. I represent ActionSA. I think that the ANC have failed this province. I've been in politics in this province since 1995. I've been an elected representative since 1995. I've been in politics since 1981. So I know what this province has gone through, and it's been very, very difficult. Even pre-94, but certainly post-1994, things have not gone well in the Eastern Cape, and people of this province are feeling it.
But Athol, in the Eastern Cape, just like anywhere else in South Africa, elections are not just for the ANC to lose; they are for the opposition parties to win. Surely, and you said it yourself earlier, they wanting to hear something else, something that will inspire them to believe again, to stand up again and say, let's go and vote. What are you guys, as ActionSA, doing to win the elections, not to wait for the ANC to lose them?
Look, I think any self-respecting political party wants to achieve the largest share of any vote. So if you go into an election and you think, well, I just want to get 1 seat, and maybe I can use that 1 seat as a transactional politician, and I can go to an auction and sell myself off to the highest bidder, that really is not going to give you any kind of political longevity. So I think the real players in the Eastern Cape are going to be the ANC, ActionSA, the EFF, and the DA. I think they're the 4 main players.
In that order?
And of course, yeah, probably in that order. And then I think you will see the Freedom Front Plus have got a very small foothold. So is the ACDP, and the UDM, I think, are going to be finally knocked out in this last round of politics. So we're talking about 5 or 6 political parties that will really contest. And what we've seen in South Africa is that coalitions are difficult. I mean, I was the mayor and I led a coalition. It fell apart because my deputy mayor was corrupt, and I'd promised that we would stop corruption. So I had to do something about him. We've seen my successors, Nabapanga and Retief Odendaal, they're leading coalitions. They're very difficult, 9 or 10 political parties. One day they're in, the next day they're out. And even in Johannesburg, Tshwane, Kuruleni, all over, it's been a bit like that. And some people are very disillusioned and disappointed, and they say coalitions can't work. Well, I know that coalitions can work, and I know that coalitions are going to be part of our politics for a long, long time. But what we're doing now is essentially we are trialing coalitions. We are experimenting, and we're working out which parties we can trust, which parties we can't trust, which parties are up for sale, which parties are there, through thick and thin. So that when 2024 comes and there's an opportunity to put forward an alternative government to govern this country and various provinces, if not all the provinces, we must by then know who we can work with and who we can't work with. But we can't do.
What you can do, go ahead.
what we can't do at a national level, and I believe it's going to be much easier at a national level. At local level, it's very difficult because you might have 12 parties or 15 parties in a council, and 6 or 7 of those have got one seat, and they are the transactional politicians. You just dangle a carrot in front of them and they grab it, and today they're in and tomorrow they sell themselves again. So that's made it very difficult at local government level. But at the national and provincial level, I think it'll be a lot more coherent. There'll be less political parties, and I think it'll be easier to put a workable coalition together.
But isn't it, I get a sense that when you wait for elections to happen first, and then you start comparing nodes and numbers and start saying, okay, you got this, let's do this together, it's a problem. Shouldn't there be like agreement templates, as it were, before the election, so that, I don't know, if you keep trying to solve the problem with the same tool over and over again and expecting different outcomes, it doesn't happen. So maybe you guys, the ActionSA, maybe you should work with the DA, other progressive parties, if you want, and say to yourself, especially to appeal to those South Africans who are no longer voting because of all the reasons that we know, to say, let's put together a plan of action that we're going to, obviously, we'll continue keeping your identities at some level, but we can still create a pre-electoral pact of sorts to say to South Africans, if you vote for us, this is what we're going to do for South Africa, so that hopefully those people who've given up can stand up. Right now, people just see the same colors coming through, and then you go to the other side of the electoral line, you start negotiating, and it's all about what portfolio do you get. It's boring for South Africans. It's also not encouraging people to believe again in South Africa.
Yeah, I think there is a strong possibility of putting together a pre-electoral pact of an undertaking of what you will do post the election. So right. I agree with you. I think that might be a very good thing, and I think it will, in all likelihood, manifest itself in 2024, before 2024. But here's the thing about, a lot of South Africans and people I come into contact with, they say, well, listen, why don't you all just form one nice big party? Well, the ANC is ukalelepayen. Put everything into one big bucket, COSATU, the SACP, SATU, ANC, Communist Party, all that, put it all together and it's going to be wonderful. Well, it's not, it's a mess. So I'm totally opposed to that kind of just throwing everybody together. And also pre-electoral coalitions are bad, because you will get parties like the UDM, for example. Bantu Holomisa still regards himself as the leader for life of his party. He was a general in the Transkei. He will come to the table and say, well, I'm a general. I've been a leader for 29 years. Therefore, I must have a leadership position in this. And I've got a lot of support, but there's no support. Then you got the DA, for example, that says they're going to get, or some of the polls say they're going to get up to 30%. Well, I'll tell you something. I will eat my hat. Here it is. I will eat this hat if the DA gets 30% in the next election. So they might be a bit delusional about what they're.
Is it national or provincial? It isn't it?
I'm just nationally or provincially. Okay. They won't. So.
Right.
So they might be a bit delusional about their support. And then, of course, ActionSA, we're a new party. We've got aspirations. We believe we're going to do really well, especially if you look at how well we did in just 6 municipalities in the last election, and we're the 6th biggest party. But I think that, you said it yourself, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome is the definition of madness. So I think that does give ActionSA a bit of an advantage, because people believe we're a fresh option. Yes, some of us come from other political parties. We all have a political history and a background. But we are a melting pot of people that have seen that the current establishment's not really working, the current political establishment's not working. So we're looking for something new and offering a new offering. So I think we will be a player. We will be a big, big player.